We are sailing empty pockets, Mike, Tiffany, and our dog Penny. We have a 2006 Hunter 38 sailboat, and we have decided that it's finally our turn to untie the lines and go live this dream that everybody else has been talking about. Yes, we are another sailing channel, but I can promise you we are a lot different than everyone else. If you would like to follow along on our journey, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel to keep updated on the latest content. In this episode, we depart from Deltaville, stop for the night in Norfolk, and continue on to Coinjock, North Carolina. The distance from Deltaville to Norfolk is 58 miles. It took us 9.5 hours to do this trip.
Let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life.
There is a lot of shoaling around Deltaville, so make sure that you stay in the channel, and if possible, try to stay in the middle at all times. We are on the Chesapeake still. We just left Deltaville and we're going to Norfolk today. It's beautiful out here. There's a large group of boats traveling all to Norfolk, and today's kind of the first nice day in a few days, so I'm sure everybody's got the same idea. We're gonna stay at a place called Waterside in Norfolk. They've got a taxi also every morning that takes you to the grocery store and stuff like that, so that's good. We can provision and get ready for whatever's ahead.
Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright. Oh, you and I, we got it. We don't need no more.
The sun came out. It's a beautiful day. The wind died down, so we weren't able to sail anymore, but it's really nice out here. We're about 20 miles from the ocean and 12 miles from Norfolk, so it'll probably be about 3 o'clock by the time we end up pulling in. Really nice. So for all of you who are wondering how we got started, what we're about, and all that stuff, I'll give you a quick rundown. Mike and I have been together for about 15 years. We have been sailing for pretty much the entire time that we've been together, and we started out with smaller boats. Our first boat was 20 feet, and then we upgraded from there, and now we're at our 5th boat, which is Empty Pockets, the 38 that we're on right now. We've done a lot of upgrades to the boat. We have a upgraded alternator, which is like a generator. This boat doesn't have a generator, but it's okay. You really don't need it with the upgraded alternator. So that was a good choice. And pretty much as long as the engine's on, our battery bank is full. We have a 200-watt solar. When we got that panel, we didn't realize that we were going to be running portable freezer. That wasn't in the equation. But at this point, we're going to likely upgrade and get more solar. Maybe we'll do flexible and sew them into the canvas on the Dodger that we just made. That was a new upgrade too. Mike pretty much made that himself. I just helped get it through the machine. You know, it was so heavy and awkward to hold, so I was just an extra set of hands, but he pretty much designed it himself, and it looks great. We had some help. One of our friends, Tom, great guy, he helped us. He had a sailrite machine, and he was able to run some stitches for us. And also he created the window in the middle, the roll-up, which is huge. We haven't used it yet, but we're excited to do that. Shout out to our friends Mike and Cassie too, because they let us borrow their Sailbright machine also. There were some things that we did because we have a heavy-duty Singer, and it couldn't get through all of the layers of binding, double-sided tape, isinglass. So we borrowed their machine, and what we couldn't finish, Tom was able to help with. So thank you guys. This trip would not be doable without this Dodger. I'll tell you what, we've used it. We love it. We would be frozen if we didn't have that, and soaking wet. So definitely worth its weight in gold. And I would say the support. We have a lot of boating friends, and the boating community is great. It's so nice to just know people. Even on this trip so far, we know nobody where we're going, but we've met such kind people along the way, and we've stayed at some great marinas that have good support systems. They let you borrow courtesy cars and stuff. So it's a nice feeling to know that the journey we're on, that there's help out there and it's available. On the way, once we got closer to Hampton, Virginia, we encountered a World Championship sailboat race. What are the chances of that? Off into the distance, you could see the slight resemblance of quay cranes, the type of cranes that are used to take containers off of cargo ships. Norfolk, we were getting closer. This is what we got coming up on us here. What the hell is that? And of course they're dredging the channel, so we can't even get out of the way. With the strong military presence in Norfolk, I personally was nervous about getting too close to any of these ships. Everything is clearly barricaded and coned off, so there is no confusion whatsoever. If you are close to the barricade, you are too close to the ship, and there is a strong presence of military police and Coast Guard as well. We were also able to see the USS Comfort that was sent to New York as a floating hospital during the pandemic. This is Hospital Point, a popular anchorage in Norfolk. Finally arrived, we spent the night at the Waterside Marina in downtown Norfolk. There were some Navy ships across the way that had generators running throughout the night, and they were well lit. The Waterside is kind of like a market with different kinds of restaurants and bars, and they do have live entertainment. It seems like it would be really fun during the summer. The trip from Deltaville to Norfolk was 58 miles and took us 9.5 hours. It was a long day, but well worth it. After spending the night, we were ready to continue the next leg of our trip from Norfolk, Virginia to Coinjock, North Carolina. This is a 47-mile trip. We will be taking the Elizabeth River through the Virginia Cut. Norfolk is very industrial. There are so many plants and factories along the Elizabeth River. I'm not sure if they're all still active, but at one time they were. This is the Gilmerton Bridge. It opens on signal, so you need to call the bridge operator on Channel 13 to request an opening. There's also a railroad bridge on the other side of the Gilmerton Bridge that is typically always open, but the bridge operator will direct you. On the Elizabeth River, you will need to pass under 7 bridges to get to the Great Bridge Lock. And for our next trick, the Great Bridge Lock. The east side of the lock is a concrete wall going south. The west side has rubber bumpers built in. We were on the east side, so we had every fender out possible. You toss your lines to the lock tender, and they will wrap your line around these concrete posts that will keep your boat in place while the boat either goes up or down 2 feet. Today, we were going down 2 feet. You need to call the lock tenders on channel 13, and your vessel name needs to be logged. They can only fit so many boats in the lock, so you need to make sure that you make it on time. The whole process with loading and unloading took us about an hour. After getting through the lock, you will have 6 more bridges on the Virginia Cut. The Battlefield Boulevard Bridge is directly after the lock, and it's timed with the lock, so you don't have to worry, it will be open for you. Although this trip is only 47 miles, there are a lot of factors that need to be taken into consideration. There are quite a few obstacles that need to be dealt with. Certain bridges open on demand, depending on the day of the week. Certain bridges open on the hour or the half hour. The lock only opens once an hour, and the loading and unloading process does take time as well. Once you pass through the Great Bridge Lock and the Battlefield Boulevard Bridge, there are some free docks heading southbound on the starboard side, but if they're all taken, you really can't stay unless you try to tie up to somebody, which I personally wouldn't recommend. So you're traveling for about 12 or 15 miles now through the Virginia Cut. It's pretty much the woods, and there are a few anchorages on the map, but depending on your draft, I don't know if I would recommend it. We did not have a guarantee of getting into Coinjock. We were in a waiting list because they don't take reservations more than a week in advance, so we decided to take our chances because the next few days the weather wasn't looking great, and if we did decide to anchor, I don't think it would have been a great idea. You will not have cell phone service with either Verizon or T-Mobile in this portion of the trip. That is the Tices of North Carolina. Just kidding. This is the Punggol Ferry Bridge that we are coming up on. We had heard a lot of chatter about this on the Waterway Guide and just on Facebook in general. There has been some construction. There were rumors of a barge being in the middle span of the bridge, which clearly wasn't here today, but people have said that they have hit the lights and there's nets and all kinds of stuff going on, and we cleared it, no problem. It's a fixed 65-foot bridge. We ended up going through here at high tide, and we were fine. Our antenna did not even twang. We purchased a subscription of an app called Aqua Maps, which are supplied depth charts from the Army Corps of Engineers, and we've overlaid Skipper Bob's tracks so we can see the tracks that he's followed on his trip through here. It's very helpful because a lot of these bodies of water are super shallow. It was our lucky day. The Coinjack Marina had a spot for us. It was on the west side of the dock. They pretty much own the whole street, so we were in luck. We had a place to sleep and plug in, but it was not within walking distance to their main office, ship store, and restaurant. So we had to deploy the dinghy to get across. There is no water taxi or any kind of shuttle service, and you can't walk because there is no bridge. This trip was 47 miles and took us 9.5 hours. However, we were only moving for 7. There's a strong current that runs through here, and it's also not a no-wake zone. So every time a boat passes, you will get bounced around. According to Google Maps, the nearest store is about 10 miles from Coinjock, North Carolina. It is very much so off the beaten path. So this was the first time in our trip where we started to kind of question like what we had in the freezer and what we were going to cook for dinner. They do have a restaurant at the marina. I don't think they are open for breakfast, In our case, we had to dinghy over, so that was kind of a project to have to go over there every time in the dinghy. So we only went over there once, and we were pretty much living on our own over here on the west side of the dock for about 3 days before we ended up moving. But it was pretty cool. They own a hotel. I don't think anyone was staying there while we were there, but it's called the Midway Hotel, and there's a lot of boats just kind of tied up or just forgotten. Like this boat here, God knows how long ago that thing sunk. The day before we left, we inquired about moving to the east side of the dock because we did want to go back to the restaurant so we could try the prime rib, and also we needed to fuel up and we needed a pump out. They were able to move us over. However, Mike had to parallel park in between two boats with very little room to spare. He did great. I think I was more nervous than he was, but they had dock hands available and everything went off without a hitch. I give him a lot of credit. It was like something out of Captain Ron. In our next episode, we travel from Coinjock to Belhaven, North Carolina. If you would like to follow our journey, please like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with the latest content.